welcome. Today we have with us a very special guest. We've been seeing a huge amount of news coming out of Manipur, which is all about the conflict that has been going on for the last 2 months. And we have a guest today who's been very candid and very open about his views. We have Nishikant Singh Sapam, who is an independent MLA from the Keshamthong Assembly constituency in Manipur. He also runs one of the largest circulating newspapers in Manipur, the Sangay Express. He's also the chairman of the Committee of Privileges and Ethics in the Manipur Assembly. Nishikanji, it's such a privilege and an honor for me to have you here today. Thank you for taking the time out during this time in Manipur, where obviously things are very delicate. You've taken the time out to speak to me. I'd like to begin by asking you, you've possibly been one of the most prominent faces that have been speaking about what is happening in Manipur. You've been very candid. Why have you felt that it's so important to speak about the conflict in Manipur, even though people say that it may be quite dangerous to do so?
Uh, when this whole thing started, and I would watch TV, and I realized that the Manipur narrative, the Meitei narrative rather, is not even heard about, in the beyond the confines of Manipur. So we Meiteis have been very loud in our own area, very vocal and things like that. But I realized that there were very few people. I'm sure there are more people who speak better than me, but I realized that there was no one at that point of time. So that's where some people, some Meiteis in Delhi said, well, please, go to the Karan Thapar show. That's where the whole thing started. And as for me, personally, if you ask me, I've always realized, way back when I was in college also, that this land issue is not fair, at that age. But very sad that now that is like almost like I left college in 1987. But now what I'm saying is that all these years, I hardly came across any Meitei who actually felt what I was feeling. The land issue was never an issue for them. And because we didn't even think ahead. And I always knew that this is going to be an issue. And if you look at the whole population where they are, like for example, in the data that I see and I've been receiving, once upon a time the Meiteis were 60% or something. Today we are less than 50%. We are supposed to be 49%. I'm talking about the ratio of population. So even the Manipuri Nagas, their number of percentage in population wise, they've also come down. So of course, the Cookie brothers have gone up like anything. Now, in this whole thing in Imphal, that's how I felt as I grew up, and I would talk to people. There were two big issues for me as I grew up. One was I never thought I'll ever work. In the sense, I always thought I am going to do business. I thought I'll never be able to work under anybody. So anyway, one was the highway. Big issue for me was why Manipur does not have a proper highway. And once I had met one of the chief secretaries, and he was asking about Manipur's issues, because whenever there's any small tribe who has an issue with anything to do with the government, they will simply block the highway. It's like choking you. So
I remember those days.
It is still the same. Sorry, nothing much has changed. Actually, there's still the same one highway. GD they're trying to develop, but then it's like a pot. It's a beautiful pot for holding water or whatever. जिसमें थोड़े 4-5 और छेद हैं, उससे काम तो होगा नहीं. The same situation.
Nishikanji, before you go ahead, can you explain to us how that impacts the state, but also how Imphal is placed?
We are totally landlocked, as you know. You've been to Imphal many times, Manipur many times. It is totally landlocked. The only way we can actually reach Imphal is by the difficult terrain, and then you can reach Imphal by plane. So we had very few flights. Yes, that credit I'll give to the government previous to this same government, and the number of flights have increased. I think today Imphal has like 15 flights a day, and there's a flight to Delhi, direct flight to Delhi every day, which is so important. And to my surprise, almost all the flights go full, packed. So that means it was very much there. And with regards to roads, it is so horrible. I have a hotel also, which you didn't mention. Next
Yeah.
time you come, you can stay there. So anyway, so there were some bikers who had come, like bikers, these group of European bikers, or some guys from Bombay also came. So I met them, and they went be biking all the way all over the world. And when they came to Guwahati, they said, "Okay, catch you in Imphal." Like Apas mein, they said that. And when they came, then they said, "Man, I met them. They were sitting in my hotel. They said this is the worst stretch of road that they ever came across in the entire trip of theirs. Imagine they're doing a world tour and coming. That is the halat, and this is the 21st century. You know, and that's when one of the chief secretaries asked me. So I said, why can't we have 5 highways? Why can't we have 10 highways? He was like, oh yeah, why not? I mean, we are held at ransom by any small tribe when they have an issue. So a thing that costs 10 rupees is going to cost 10 rupees, 5 paise or 10 paise in Guwahati. The same thing when it reaches Manipur is going to cost you something like 15 rupees. Like I was picking up a printing machine, I mean, some time back, this quite some time back. Imagine this is probably 15 years back, 15 years back. And so I needed 2 truckloads for the machine, the web machines for printing the newspaper. So the manufacturer said, कि sir मेरी हिम्मत नहीं हुई book करने के लिए. I said why? He said because the cost of from Delhi to Guwahati is 80,000 rupees per truckload, but if it is to go to Imphal, it is going to be from Delhi to Imphal is like 2.5 lakh per truck. Imagine, that is called a massive psychological distance. You feel so cut off, so helpless. So roads are so important. There's one issue. The second issue was the land, which I'm coming to. And now you see, with the major population, the Meiteis are staying here, the Meitei Pangals, the Muslims are staying here. Then you have all our tribal brothers, they are most welcome, they're all staying here. There are the non-Manipuri Indians staying here. Everybody staying in Imphal. So you literally have, I'm telling you, 2/3 of the population staying in this. I've been saying 10%, some people say it is even less than that. Chalo, 9% pakad lo. Usme say you take out the area of Loktak, Kaibul Lamjao, you're probably left with only 6% of the state land. And then when you start doing a little research and asking, not that I'm a great researcher, so as I carry on, like for example, I am told that in the British days, Meiteis and everybody were considered as tribes, right? And when and the Meitei king was the one who captured Cabo Valley. So if the Meitei king can go and capture Cabo Valley, so I'm sure the whole part, I'm not saying belongs to only Meiteis, it belonged to those inhabitants. Of course, he always got the support. No, I'm not trying to say that he was under somebody or not. He always had the support of all the various tribe leaders and things like that. So the fact that the Meitei king is the one who signed the merger agreement in 1949, I think that was a year, I think. So no other leader signed. I am still again not saying that anybody was under the Meitei king, whatever, but it was the Meitei king in full authority who signed the merger agreement where Manipur became a part of the Union of India.
He represented everybody.
Exactly. So what I'm trying to say is that at that point of time, anybody could stay anywhere. So now comes 1951, where the census happens, and in the census, all the tribes other than the Meiteis are given ST status. Now that is a hit point for us. Then suddenly the MLR and LR Act 1960, where only Meiteis are confined to the valley and some places in Churachandpur and More. Right. Now that was something which was totally imposed on us. I am sure that we were not even aware, And by the time, imagine when I was in college, I started feeling it ki kal kya hoga. This is not fair in the sense we are all son of the soil, and why should we be just targeted? Because as I was growing up, I have known people from Himachal Pradesh who are Rajputs and who own orchards in the hill, way up in the hills. So Himachal being a part of India and Manipur being a part of India, I mean, can have the same law. And if this was done in 1951, 1960, I mean, during the late Jawaharlal Nehru's time, well, that time probably people didn't realize, because the population of Manipur, I think that time was 5.7 lakh or something. Today, in the 2011 census, that was like 12 years ago, our population was 29 lakh. Today, we will be like almost 40. Now, down the year, like another 30, 40 years, would be almost 2 crore. Where would we go if you're not going to allow every son of the soil to enjoy the resources? Especially look at the Maitai. You will perish one day. You will cease to exist. So in all fairness, if you go to the history, the land belonged to all of us. I'm not saying only the Maitais. So, and we just want a level playing field. Let us share the resources of the state. And I'm sure that is in all fairness for everyone. And when it comes to the ST quota and all this job thing, we can work out in such a way that everybody's issues are addressed. And it not only reflects the state government jobs, but also the central government jobs. Because for a simple boy, a poor boy studying in a government school in Manipur, a Maitai boy, you'll find it difficult to competing somebody studying in some Delhi schools or Doon School or Mayo College or Sanar. It's difficult, yeah. You have to realize that. So certain amount of quota, you can play. There's always a solution to everything. So I am only advocating for a level playing field for all of us, including the Maitais, including the Manipuri cookies, mind you, Manipuri cookies, those who were here before 1961, because that is a cutoff date. That goes for every community, be it a Maitai or a Kuki or a Manipuri Naga, everybody, and for level playing field for one and all, simple as that.
So, level playing field that you've said seems like possibly the most rational thing to ask for.
Exactly.
But there seems to be a lot of conflict within that idea because people feel that it's not going to be a level playing field. The other side feels that somehow their rights are going to be infringed upon and their land is going to be encroached upon. But from my understanding, I believe that even out of all the hill lands that are reserved, majority of the land is not habited.
Probably 5%, not even that.
Hmm.
The hill area is 92%. It's huge. When you go to Manipur by flight, you can see that nobody lives there. It is just about ego issue, our land. But who decided it's your land? Some act in 1960. If you go back to history, it all belonged to all of us. Who decided?
Correct. When this act came in the 60s, was there any opposition to it?
You see, we were ruled by Delhi. We were a union territory. There was somebody ruling Manipur from there. Everything was decided. Pata hi nahi chala. You just imagine in this modern day, the 21st century, today, 2023, you yourself, realize that the Maitai voice is very, not even heard, in Delhi with all the issue going on. It is always the cookie voices that's going, in Delhi, no Maitai voices are heard. So imagine us waqt kya hua hoga. Pata hi nahi chala. Thop diya humke upar. It was imposed upon us. Now a wrong has been done. It has to be undone. You think that when we are, a population of 2 crore, how will we survive? And I believe, yeah, tell me.
I find Imphal already slightly
Very
overburdened.
crowded. Yeah, and you have traffic jams and traffic jams and traffic jams. Everybody. See, the thing is, there are, Imphal has all communities staying there. All communities. Be it the Manipuri Nagas, the Manipuri Cookies, everybody staying there. Yes, I would say that whatever happened shouldn't have happened, and completely uncalled for, completely unfortunate. Or things could have taken shape nicely through rule of law. Could have been debated, and I'm sure. We can always work it out because, of course, the government, the constitution is for every citizen of this country. So it'll be looked after. It didn't have to go through this way, actually. Very sad.
Absolutely. I think, it has created so many fault lines within the communities. There's been such an emotional impact. And of course, one has to condemn the kind of violence that has happened on any of the sides. But you also said that this land is to be shared by only Manipuri cookies.
Why?
Who are the others compared to them that you're referring to?
Now I will rephrase that. This land is supposed to be shared by only Manipuris. That is Manipuri cookies, Manipuri Maitais, Manipuri Nagas, those who have been here prior to 1961. The actual date should have been 1951 when the census happened. Anyway, that has been pushed forward. to 1961. Bus, uske baad, anybody who comes will be called an infiltrator, you know. So, and I don't know why a lot of our cookie brothers get flared up. There was a showdown with the Meiteis and the Meitei Nagas. Okay, there was never a word of infiltration. The Meiteis never spoke of infiltration. The Meiteis never spoke about NRC. Then you should realize why we're talking about, I mean, we, matlab, as in not me personally, but why we are talking about infiltration, NRC with the cookies. Because a lot of cookies, other than the Manipuri cookies, mark my words, a lot of cookies, other than the Manipuri cookies, have been entering Manipur, India. Now, I just looking for, there was this, I just read out. This was published somewhere in one of the newspapers. So there was one Nahing Pao Kebgin who died of COVID in Delhi. I think probably a couple of years ago. Now, he is a renowned cookie academician, a political scientist, a well-known writer, orator in varied fields. Professor Dr. Nahing Pao Kebgin died of the dreaded COVID in Delhi. He was 46 and he is a professor. He's professor. So he's already become Indian citizen, mark my words. And his thing is, he was born in Taijing in Myanmar. Now, he's already become Indian citizen. He's an author. So a lot of scholars, he must be a scholar, I'm sure, therefore he became a professor. But his origins go back to Burma, and he was born in 1975. He's an infiltrator, actually, if this is true. Otherwise, so there are many cases, and they have written books on cookie history. So therefore, I saw one of the professors, in fact, a Manipuri professor, says, you must read the books written by the cookie scholars in the last 20 years. And I find this, and I say, wow, I mean, what is to be believed? So, like, for example, if you ask me to prove my Manipuri-ness, well, my house was there since, prior to 1961, that itself says it. I can trace my grandfather. He's a person who makes this, if you have seen the Manipuri pala, when, in the funeral and marriages, you have these big turbans. So my grandfather was the one who created that. That's the king days. So we can always trace back. So the thing is, NRC is required because you have to weed them out. And I would blame the governments fair and square to the governments before, not only this regime, but before this also, and before that also. In 1972, when we became a state, that is the time all the chief ministers should have taken care of this infiltration problem. Shouldn't have let it happen. And it has been going on. Everybody's got their Aadhaar card. They may be having an Aadhaar card, but it'll be difficult for them to prove their existence, or rather their family's existence or their forefathers' existence prior to 1961. That I can tell.
So tell me in very simple...
for those infiltrators.
Correct. Tell me in very simple terms for our viewers, that what sort of problems does infiltration cause?
Well, infiltration has caused, I think, overpopulation and a lot of people who are jobless, and poppy cultivation has started happening. Well, I will not say that as per the data, out of 15,000 acres of land of poppy cultivation is been going up, the area where poppy cultivations are happening. I think 13,000 acres happen to be in places where our cookie brothers reside. But I am not blaming them fair and square. I mean, they are the people, and then you get good money for poppy cultivation because there's a lot of money, and I'm sure there are players other than cookies into this. There could be Meiteis also, there could be Manipuri Nagas also, but it is happening in the land. If they were, so I think this is, that's the easiest way of employment, and you get good money for that. That's the way I see it. Easy employment. And of course, insurgency has gone up like hell. Sorry for my word, hell, sorry. It is, insurgency is that way.
Yeah, so infiltrations had an impact on the demography. It's had an
demographic. Yeah, exactly. That's why I said that the Meitei population is increasing. The Meitei population is increasing, but ratio we have come down from 60% to 49%. And the Naga Manipuris, their ratio has also come down. So the demography, the cookies are increasing. So therefore, you have to understand what is happening. Demography change is happening, easy employment, insurgency, or rather militancy. And yes, demography, massive change. And that's where you see, if you actually look at the entire Northeast, Maitais are a minority compared to the cookies actually put together. They have all over the place.
Correct,
Where do we
correct,
go? They can go anywhere. We can't go anywhere. It's like
correct,
the Hindus. It's like the Hindus cannot go anywhere else. They have only India. You know.
correct. But there's both sides have taken very, very strong stances. Whether
I, I haven't taken any strong stance.
apart from you,
Yeah.
we've seen people from both sides who've taken a strong stance in terms of in the light of the violence that we've seen, saying that they're not going to budge from what they demand. Whether it's the Metis, whether it's the cookies. Fair enough, but how does then one normalize the situation? How do we go forward?
I always say that rule of law has to be enforced. There has to be peace. The guns have to stop. The fire has to be doused. Then peace will happen, and let the rule of law play. Then rules can be made. There can be debates. Everything will happen. Right now, the rule of law is completely absent in the sense that Manipur still continues to burn. Today the first. I would call this 59th day. It started on the third. That month had 31 days. So today is the 59th day. I mean, I'm counting every hour, every day of what Manipur is going through. I mean, when I say Manipur, all of us. So this rule of law has to come in. There has to be good sense. Everything will happen.
But tell me, we've heard of all these weapons that are floating around in Manipur. I
Yeah,
mean, some have been returned as well, but not enough. All of them have to be returned, surrendered.
absolutely.
I think maybe last data was 1,000, 1,500 weapons have been returned.
Yeah,
How is it going to be possible to bring these weapons back? Because, in civil society, these kind of weapons are not going to go into the hands of a, intelligent, rational person. They're going to go into the hands of the miscreants. So even to bring peace back, in my opinion, you need these weapons back. How difficult is that going to be now?
it's like uh, you cannot clap with one hand. So how the whole episode happened was what happened on the third and fourth and fifth and sixth were absolutely condemnable, in the strongest form. Then there was a silence. There was a period where things were opening up, and when prior to the honorable home minister's coming, and we announced his coming, arrival in Manipur on 29th, 27th, the firing happened, very well coordinated from all directions, and you cannot walk around those, the hill, the slopes, within an hour or two. It was too well planned. Before that also, weaponries had been stolen, but they were being returned. They had already returned, I think, 65-70%, and suddenly this happened. Then again, another, loot happened, where, which I'm told. And the loot happened not only, I mean, majority, I think, what happened in the valley, it happened in the hills also. But what is dangerous today is, yes, I agree that the guns have to be taken back. And now you have to see that in this last death where two people died in Kangpokpi a few days back. There was this chap who died. He was serving in the merchant navy. So this guy, he felt for his community and he came to defend his community in that area. So he wasn't. I wouldn't call him a miscreant. So he felt that the Maitais are in danger and things like that. So he went to protect the community. So there are also miscreants. There are also people like him. And now I am told that 3 truckloads of arms and ammunition has crossed into India from Myanmar side. There have been reports. So where are they going to? Of course, they are not going to come to the valley. So I think Manipur, the way things are, it still needs a really strong iron hand, and people have to be accountable. The people in power, the people in administration, the police, the army, they have to be properly accountable. Then only things will happen. Rule of law means a civilized living a civilized way of life will have to come in. That is why we have the rule of law.
Nishikanji, you made a very important point right now about weapons still coming in. There have been news we saw in India Today also. They reported that a cache of weapons had been dropped into Manipur. Of course, we haven't seen it. We take this with
Yeah, yeah,
we,
but there have been reports.
but there have been reports. Now, how do you see the role of any sort of international hand? Because, the reason I ask this is a lot of people that I've spoken to say, well, infiltration is not a problem. People come in, people go out because we've got that 16-kilometer area. But obviously, it
But
allows
that must
for
be mostly the cookie voice who says that. I have a problem in my house. People can't just keep coming and going. My
correct,
house is not a dharamsala. I don't allow it. Why should
correct,
we allow it? Can you try that in America, coming and going back? You can't. You are not allowed to. You will be in prison.
correct.
So yes, it has become a very serious national threat. It's a border. I am sure China is very omnipresent there, and you have some the PDF to tha hi hamare site par. Then you have CDF, some Chin Cookie Defense Force, very active. And there have been reports where people are found with lungis and things like that. There are reports that people are coming with different languages. So it's like a free for all, and completely stateless. Whatever is happening is like completely bizarre. It's like what happens probably in one of these Beirut kind of situation.
Correct, correct. And
Except that Beirut has tall buildings.
correct, correct. But in Myanmar, also, they've dealt with these problems for a long time with insurgent groups. And so the chances are that the people coming in are already fairly trained and radicalized, and there's no way of
Yeah,
figuring out. Now,
yeah.
how difficult is it to plug these borders? Do you think that, because you say that, the importance of the rule of law, but the rule of law, as it is equal for everybody, also has some little problems in establishing itself in at least the border areas because they're so porous.
Yeah.
How do you see the role of the fencing? Do you think fencing is going to stop? How do you think you can plug this border?
Well, fencing, of course, is a very basic thing and the most effective thing, though it is very expensive. But those areas where you can easily walk over has to be fenced. The areas have to be fenced wherever you can easily walk over. The difficult terrain where you could put barbed wires. I was just watching a program on North Korea. North Korea, to prevent their own citizens from escaping on the boundary, have barbed wires. Of course, with electrocuted barbed wires, electrified, or what you call. Well, we could do something like that. I mean, if where there is a will, there is a way. And that's why I'm saying the central government also is there. They are also answerable when it comes to infiltration. And so is the responsibility of the state government. But for us, directly, it impacts us directly, state government. So in that case, I mean, the state governments have never looked into it. They have failed on their duties. The administration has failed. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been so much of infiltration at all.
Correct. Now, let me come to one of my last questions is that, the central government's also made this region a center point of their policy, the Act East policy, and we've seen a lot of changes come in. We've seen
Yeah.
insurgency decline. And Manipur itself, even I remember from being seen as a conflict state in the last few years, saw relative peace, which was amazing, which is why all this infrastructural development and things like this could happen. Again, it's gone back to this perception of it being.
Yeah. Exactly. I agree with you. Manipur, I would say, last 10, 12 years have become very good. You know,
Correct.
uh, Even in the last 5 years of Mr. Ibobi Singh was good. Manipur had nice electricity, and then this present BJP government. What was good about them was there were no more buns. Suddenly, prior to this happening, everything looked normal, and things were going to happen. And from look east policy, the whole attitude was act east policy. And there are highways being built towards More, and for the and I realized when trade happens, every Manipuri in Manipur will be worth 10 times its value in terms of economics or whatever. And then the train is going to come, though a lot of people have serious issues with train coming, saying there'll be laborers coming. Well, you have to understand that when Dubai is being developed or any city is being developed, there will be laborers. I mean, just God can't just come and create it for you. So there will be. It has
One of
pros and
the
cons.
That's one of the problems of taking a very hardened stance is that it becomes a catch-22 situation. You
Yeah,
want infrastructure, you want development, but you don't want to cede space because this development will require land. It will
absolutely.
require a peaceful state. It will require immigrants to come in. But during CA, again, an ILP was put in the state.
Yeah, yeah.
So there seem to be all these very conflicting ideas that are coming
Conflicting. Yeah.
out of, yeah, which is coming out of the state, which seems to be for
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
not for the benefit, but almost for the detriment of the state.
Absolutely, absolutely. For example, okay, said to protect the ethnic, indigenous people, we have had the ILP. Okay, fine. But I have always asked the government, and in the assembly also, whenever I spoke, I have always said, why not make an app? Because you want to promote tourism. First thing to promote tourism, first most important infrastructure is law and order. Law and order is the most important infrastructure. One must feel safe to visit Manipur. If one does not feel safe to visit an area, he will never come and bring his family. And we have to understand that VIPs are not tourists. They are state guests where state spends on them. We want people, normal people coming to Manipur, spending on us. So, like in Hindi, you say in Sanskrit, Atiti Dev Bhavo. So you have to give immense respect to and look after your guests. So at least make an app. Don't make anybody stand in a queue. Don't demean him. So that when he comes, he's in the app, and then through the app, you get your money also. You will get to know where he's going. You can easily track that person. Somehow this was not done. They said there was an app, but I've never seen an app. So, so you cannot think of promoting tourism with a not a very user friendly ILP system. You have to change the ILP system into app. Then things can happen. And and then you have to understand that this is a global village. We have to understand that you cannot grow in isolation. You know,
And
the most developed places, whether it is Tokyo, whether it is New York, San Francisco, anywhere, is a cosmopolitan place. Why is China developing? Because they have all the apples and this, and Apple is not Chinese made. I mean, things have to come in. There will have to be Americans coming. There will have to be Europeans coming. And look at Singapore. All sorts of people are there. That's why they develop well. But of course, in a place like Dubai, it's developing. But they have their own rules where I think non-Emirati cannot buy land. We could do something like that. Please come enjoy your stay. But well, the land cannot be bought by any outsider other than a Manipuri, whether you're a Kuki or a Manipuri Naga or a Maitai, it should be a Manipuri. And whatever business you do, I think Dubai, I'm not sure, Dubai has this thing that you have to have a partnership with the Emirati. We could also do something like that, but we have to open up. We cannot live in isolation.
I think
It's like you can't run a race in isolation and say, well, I came first or I came last. Pata hi nahi chalega.
I think you just took off your politician hat and put on your businessman hat because
No, logic.
yeah, that's really, really well said, that would encourage so many people to come in, but also increase the interaction, wherein you're not
Yeah.
living in isolation. Familiarity also breeds friendship. So I
Yeah.
think that's a really important point that you made. But I still see this sort of like back and forth, where people want to self-preserve, yet you want infrastructure and development. So moving forward, how important do you think civil society from both ends or all ends is going to play in making this happen?
Now, I want to add in where I said, no, tourism and trying to preserve your ethnicity. Have you been to Bali in Indonesia?
Well, I haven't personally visited.
Well, Bali, when I go to Bali, Bali reflects so much of us, Maitais. They're Hindus, and in our New Year time, we call Chirauba. We, offer a food at the gate for the gods. The Balinese, they do it every day. Okay, Bali is a place where in the peak tourist season, well, Bali is throughout peak tourist season, you have more than 50% of the population as tourist population. There are no ILPs there. Everything is fine. Okay, we want to keep ILP. I'm saying keep ILP. App now. Bali has been going on. I don't see Bali's culture being threatened. And Manipur's culture, our identity is not so weak that will vanish.
True.
Never. I am a very proud Meitei, and I will stay like this, and I'll die like this. Even if I have friends who are not Meiteis or whatever, wherever, whichever corner, I am going to be a proud Meitei. Wherever I go to this world, whether it is America, Europe, Japan, I will always be a proud Meitei. I'll die a proud Meitei. My ethnicity is not under threat whatsoever.
Absolutely. I think, again, a great point because I don't think interactions and, being able to look at the Gujaratis, they've been all over the world. They've settled, I'm a Gujarati, I know they've settled all over the world. They've made a name for themselves, but they've taken their culture, their traditions
Yeah,
with them.
wherever
And
they go with them.
including their theplas, so yeah, but that is what is very difficult for people to understand. So
Yeah, in fact, I'll add, the way I look at education, a lot of people emphasize on degree. There's something called common sense which never comes with a degree. Okay, that you can probably acquire or learn of through interactions, through exposure. So in my dictionary or in my mind, good education is not your degree; it is an exposure. Okay, like for example, I am not saying that I can speak very good English, but as compared to Manipuri standard, I can speak pretty fine. And I'm not done English honors. I don't even know what a verb or an adverb is, but I know it. It is through interactions. It is completely through interactions. So interaction, exposure is the ultimate education, not your degree. You can get your degree sitting in one corner of the room, keep reading, 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 you'll come first. But you know it's called the philosophy of life, how you'll improve your vision, your narrative of life, you know about happiness. Everything will come through interaction and exposure. It's required.
absolutely, I am on board with you there, because the more you get to know people and the more people get to know you, this feeling of, you're a stranger goes
Yeah,
away,
absolutely.
and it becomes easier to interact. But obviously, this is something that is being used by certain sections. I won't say representatives of any of the communities that live in Manipur. I wouldn't say all of them, but certain sections of all these communities is being used as something to feel scared about. And this is, I think, uh, also one of the reasons that there has been the kind of violence there has been. Now, how moving forward does civil society come together? Because the fault lines are clearly very deep. The kind of threat perception that they have is very high, whether it's the loss of identity, whether it's the loss of land, these perceptions are also very high. So how do all these, you guys have a huge amount of organizations, on all sides.
Many,
Uh,
many, many.
But there isn't an organization that I see that's come up and said, look, we want peace and nothing else, and we can talk about these problems later. So how would you suggest that they come together?
Yeah, I see. You see, the narrative has to change. A lot of us, in the valley feel that we are fighting the cookies. you know I see it, of course, the way we see it. Sorry, I will rephrase that. We are fighting the infiltrator militants versus the Maitais. Okay. Now, what I want to tell everybody, whether you are a Manipuri Kuki or a Manipuri Naga or a Manipuri Maitai, any violence, any further divide, any sort of unrest, we all stand to lose. You know, we all of us stand to lose. It's like unity and diversity. We have to practice that. And if there is any unrest, if there is a deep divide, I mean, as a Meitei, I will say we all stand to lose, because Manipur as such belongs to all of us. We will not allow Manipur to be divided just because the number of infiltrators are very high. They want a division. And the way I see it is because the Kuki land was a very long standing demand. It's always been there. It's like somebody in the house brings in a lot of friends from outside, and they suddenly say, we're going to take over this part. That'll not be allowed. So that's what I'm saying. Infiltrators have to be spotted, NRC has to be brought in, and let the rule of law play as per the rule of law. I mean, if they want to apply for CAA, why not? If they want to apply for citizenship, let them become Indians first, then they can become Manipuris. So I said, Rami, everything is about rule of law. When rule of law is there, everything will fall into place. Even the CSOs will fall into place. Everybody will fall into place. Believe me.
Well, Nishikantji, we can only hope for that. We can hope for rule of law to preside in your wonderful,
It
wonderful
must, and
country.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah, I'm sure it will, because I don't think, I think it's
It
taking
can't go on like this.
can't go on, and I think it's taking a toll on everybody as well. And everybody, it's
Everybody.
dawning now on everybody that everybody stands to lose, nobody stands to gain in this.
Everybody stands to lose. And for us today, even an hour's wait is like, a week's wait. So every minute, every moment, we are hurting ourselves.
Correct, correct. So, hoping that peace prevails and
Yeah.
you can go back to Manipur and everybody else who has had to take refuge in Delhi can finally go back to their homes because I think conflict, there are almost like 40,000 displaced refugees, I
More
believe.
than that. I think more than 50, I think.
More than, I'm sure there must be more than that, and it must be ensured that they can safely go back to the homes that they've left behind.
Rule of law
Rule of law
will
prevail.
ensure safety. It must prevail without bias towards any community.
Thank you so much for having this
Thank
discussion with me. I think,
thank you.
it's made all of us a little bit more enlightened on what is happening on Manipur. And I hope to have a discussion with you when, things are back to normal in Manipur. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Rami. Thank you.